how to choose the battery range for your electric vehicle. Now, your electric vehicle has a battery inside, and you always want to go for the longest range you can afford, but sometimes you have to make some compromises due to other features and other amenities that a car might have instead of range. So the first thing you need to know is how much are you going to use this car daily, because at night you'll charge it, or if you get to a destination you'll charge it. So really you care about the 1 day usage, right? Daily usage. In my case, for example, I commute to work, I take the kids to sport, I go to grocery shopping, and usually I can average up to 50 miles a day, more or less. But that's not all. Frequently on the weekends, for example, I have to take my kids to tournaments that are out of town, and I might even drive on a weekend, regular weekend, I might drive up to 100 miles sometimes. So I'm going to make my calculations based on a daily need of 100 miles, okay, of 100 miles of range. So if I think of a battery as 100 miles, the first thing I need to know about batteries is that they work best when they stay between 20% and 80% of charge, okay? Which means that my 100 miles now need to be this middle range of the battery needs to be 100 miles, not the whole battery. Well, not only that, but that's 100 miles. But what happens is sometimes in cold temperatures, right, which is where I live, in cold temperatures, you might lose up to 30% of your range due to heating, because again, the battery powers the whole car, including the heating system. So those 100 miles now becomes 143 miles. I need to have 143 miles between 20 and 80% of the battery, which in the end means that my battery needs to have 238 miles. That's what it comes out to. If 143 miles is a 60% of my battery, my whole battery needs to be 238 miles. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about is that over the life of the car, the battery will degrade approximately 10%. Okay? So your 238 miles will diminish. In order for it to still have 238 miles, even if you lose 10% of range, you will need a battery of 264 miles. Okay? Now, that is 100 miles, which is what I started with, times 2.64. So if I times my daily needs times 2.64 miles, I'll get the range that I really need. Considering, this is important, considering 30% loss due to cold weather. Now, if you live in sunny California or in a temperate weather, this factor is reduced by 1.85 miles. So in my case, if I lived in a temperate weather where temperatures are between 40 and 80 all year round, I would need only 185 miles of range in my battery to satisfy my needs. So let's go through some examples. It might be that, say you travel 60 miles a day, okay, or up to 60 miles. So you travel 30, 40 miles a day, and then on the weekends you might go out of town and it's just 60 miles. Well, you only need a battery that, in a cold weather, that has 158 miles of range. That could be the Volkswagen e-Golf, for example, right? Mostly if you're driving in the city, that's all you need. And again, you need to consider your daily needs, not how far do you want to go. Because for road trips, there's plenty of places to stop. And if you're driving 158 miles with kids, you're going to stop right around that mark, right? And the other thing to notice is that I've done these estimates very conservatively. Usually for road trips or for some longer trips or in emergencies, you can fill the battery beyond the 80% mark, and you can deplete the battery below the 20% mark if you need to. It's just not something that's advisable to do continuously, but you have that extra range. So again, multiply your range or your daily needs by 2.64 if you want to consider cold weather, multiply by 185 if you want to if you live in a temperate weather, and that's going to tell you how much range you need in your battery. I hope you like this video. Bye.